away from the power and more of a spread. Is that accurate? What are you kind of expecting from them this week on offense?
Yeah, they were a little bit different offensively. Had a couple guys a little bit more involved than they had been, but nothing drastically different. The fundamentals are the same. They've got a great quarterback, great front, a couple wideouts that can make big plays. McCaffrey obviously played a additional role, a little bit bigger role. And then we've got a couple of great tailbacks. And then obviously Montgomery in the kicking game is dynamic. It seems like that's a recurring theme in this conference right now. We've hit a bunch of great kick returners in a row. And defensively they've been rock solid against everybody.
Gary Horowitz back here.
Hi, Mark. Mark, I think it was Coronas, maybe even a couple other players were talking about last year's game, that maybe players made that game too big of a deal. It made it more important maybe than some others. Did you sense that at all from a year ago, and does that play into this week at all?
Hopefully, if they felt that way, yeah. Hopefully, it plays a role into just the preparation. There's all those outside motivators, whether it's revenge or the rivalry or this or that or the other. Funnel that to your preparation. That's the only way you can make that a functional positive for you personally or for the team. And I think in that regard, we've had a couple good days. Whether that was a function of a few, we had a few guys do some uncharacteristic things last year that could have been caused by that.
Aaron Fentress on the left.
There's such a stark contrast between how you guys perform on offense against virtually everyone else and how you perform the past 2 seasons against Stanford. What about them makes it so difficult for you guys to move the ball consistently and score? And how do you overcome, if there is a problem, psychologically dealing with that aspect that they sort of have you guys as a heavier number?
Yeah, I think the last year's game and the previous year's game were, starkly contrasted performances in my opinion. Last year we had a ton of chances. The year before we didn't play very hard and didn't play very well. Last year we played hard and didn't finish well. Had the ball in the red zone a ton of times, whether it was a running game, passing game, had some guys open, had 2 fumbles in the red zone, a 4th down play in the red zone, all kind of there for the taking. And that's what made that a little bit more frustrating. The bad news is they've been really good against everybody. It's not like they're giving up 50 to everybody else and we're scoring 3. But they're really good, and it's a tremendous challenge, and I think our guys would be excited to play.
One in the back.
Coach, considering Stanford's such a ball control offense, how much more important then does it make your offensive possessions or when you have the ball to score, and defense obviously has to get you guys back on the field?
Well, yeah, we want to score every time we have the ball against everybody we play, and that's where the most important play in the world is the next one, and that mindset matters whether you're playing a perceived lesser opponent or a better opponent. It's the next play is the most important play, and you can't play, oh my God, we have to score. You have to totally focus and finish that play, and then play the next as a total independent entity. Last year they did a tremendous job of they milked the clock and snapped it late and held the ball, and that's frustrating to everybody, offensively and defensively. But that again is that dynamic, that psychology is something that you can't be either whining about it, but you got to make happen. Whether that's doing your job on offense or doing your job on defense to get them off the field.
Ryan, your left.
Coach, how did Aiden Schneider do on kickoffs? Because Matt had done well the previous weeks, and also, what's it like as a coach having a freshman snapper, holder, and kicker? Do you even think about that?
No, we don't really think in terms of grades. It's whatever week in the season it is. We have so many guys playing prominent roles on both sides of the ball and in special teams that everybody's our best guy. If they're in the game, they're our best guy. It doesn't matter, doesn't matter what grade they're in. And Aiden did a nice job. We had a couple kicks that weren't ideal. Had a couple coverage lapses by our kickoff cover team, but all in all, he did a nice job.
Andy.
This is Stanford's the only team that Marcus hasn't beaten. Is there any completeness in the collegiate career when you can beat all the Pac-12 teams? And also, have you seen any extra sense of energy or motivation or whatever from him or the team?
On the latter part, I think we've prepared almost without exception really well, and so far so good in that regard. Our practices have been good, and Marcus Mariota doesn't need to beat anybody to prove the greatness of him. I know that he as a competitor wants to beat everybody, and it doesn't matter if it's Stanford or whoever. He's gonna compete like heck to win as a competitor, as a teammate. But again, that's kind of an external factor that doesn't help him make a read better. And if he prepares with a little chip on his shoulder, great. And then just go out and play fast and free.
Matt?
You've got a couple guys that are dinged up. Excuse me. How do you handle getting them ready for this game if they can go, but also making sure the guys who are healthy ready to go for this game?
Yeah, that's always kind of a double-edged sword in preparation for whoever. But in practice, guys can go. They go 100 miles an hour, and if they can't, they don't. And that's where, again, from our depth standpoint, we've certainly tested our depth at a bunch of positions this year, and have been happy with how most guys have stepped up because of how we practice and because of their collective confidence in each other. Haven't, to a degree, skipped too many beats, but we're pushing to get all hands on deck for sure.
You mentioned the run of kick returners and punt returners you guys have faced. Montgomery's, of course, next. What makes him stand out, or Stanford blocking on those teams stand out? And then also, do you guys have someone who mimics that returner week in and week out? Is it Juwan Williams? Is it someone who you can kind of turn to each week and give you a look?
Right. Yeah. Well, in order there, he's just really dynamic. He's big, physical kid. I mean, he's a great looking guy. He's probably a 225-ish, 220, thick dude, tall, but then still has some shake and some elusiveness to him that guys normally don't have. They're that big, and then on there, and we don't have too many of those guys lying around, and so we try to for instance, whether it's him or some of these other guys we've had, we just put our best, our guys in there, whether it's Devin Allen, Charles Nelson, our kind of starting guys. Darren Carrington has done a nice job. I'm trying to think of some other guys that we've put in there, and we try to keep that guy new each time, so it's not the same guy doing it 5 times in a row. And then the other part that's tough is, like you said, they play a bunch of linebackers on a bunch of their special teams. They're big, fast, physical guys, and again, you don't have a bunch of those guys laying around to cover a bunch of kicks or kick off returns, whatever the scenario is. But our scout units, Juwan Williams in particular last week, have been really good in preparation so far.
Chantel?
A few of the guys have said that last year they circled this date on the calendar and maybe pressed a little bit too much in the game. Is this one of those rare instances where it's almost a benefit that you have so many young guys who haven't played in this game that are such big contributors that they don't sort of have the feeling of last year when they did go in pressing because of the history of this?
Now that you said that, yes, that's exactly what our strategy is. I like that angle. Yes and no. I mean, luckily we're afforded the opportunity to get it pointed out very often who we've lost to in the last couple of years, and having that at the forefront happens, and so maybe that is a good thing. Those guys are a little bit fresher in their perspective.
Aaron Finchers.
Any thoughts on the committee top 25 coming out tonight?
No. I mean, it's
watching with bated breath.
say again.
You'll be watching the coverage with bated breath.
We're gonna have a team meeting. Everybody's gonna sit. No, no. And again, you know, I think it's awesome for college football. It is great for college football, and the media. It's you know it's exactly like the BCS rankings have been for a bunch of years, and argue about that, you know, for forever. And hopefully our guys have known, and I think they have, or have learned certainly, that those rankings don't matter at all until the end. And you know, we've learned that the hard way several years, and you know, just can do nothing but focus you more on preparing for Stanford.
Mason.
Was Charles getting carries in the backfield more of a byproduct of Tyner not traveling on Saturday, or is that something that we might see more going forward? And when you went back and kind of evaluated how he played outside of just special teams where he's excelled, what do you guys see on that tape?
He's phenomenal. The guy is unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, like we talked about after the game, I mean, he basically played fullback, tailback, a couple wideout positions, and then a returner, a gunner on the punt team, a kickoff cover guy. I mean, he's just phenomenal, and was not good at those positions. He was phenomenal, and that's rare. Especially, you know, a guy of his stature that can do that many things that well, and his intelligence to be able to pick all those things up. But it was a byproduct basically of going, hey, that guy's really good when he has the ball in his hands. Let's do that some more. And so we're, you know, absolutely going to find some ways to make that happen.
Warren Williamson in the back.
Mark, can a comparison be made between Stanford's defense and Michigan State's? Is there like a Shalik Calhoun on Stanford? Is there much of a comparison between those two teams?
Well, I think that the simplest comparison is they're both really good. You know, Stanford is way more diverse in their scheme. Michigan State, like we said at the time, and I think it's a giant compliment, is very simple, and they are really, really, really good at it. Stanford is very complex, and they're really good at it. So, however you want to shake it, they're a 3-4 base team that plays in and out of a bunch of different fronts, a ton of coverages. They don't really have any tendencies, and you know, they've got a bunch of great athletes doing it. And so, you know, from a functional standpoint, they're very much the same. From the details, couldn't be more different in terms of their scheme.
Anything else? Thank you.
All right.